You know that feeling you get sometimes when you're standing in a high place? Sudden urge to jump? I don't have it.
While Jack Sparrow here may not get that feeling, many people around the world have reported experiencing such an urge. So much so, in fact, that the French actually came up with their own name for it. L'appel du vide, or for those more romantically challenged, the call of the void. As the name suggests, this feeling is commonly associated with standing on a high ledge and experiencing a sudden urge to jump into the void below. However, it can also be tied to other experiences such as jerking your steering wheel into oncoming traffic, standing in the middle of its tracks as a train is fast approaching, sticking a metal object into an electrical outlet, or even just touching a hot stovetop. So what is this mysterious call of the void? Why do certain people report feeling it, some even on multiple occasions throughout their lives, while others seemingly never do? And most importantly, what causes it and what does it really mean? Well, this phenomenon has puzzled many scientists, scholars, and psychologists throughout history as they've tried to come up with an explanation for it. And as such, many theories have been put forth in an attempt to do so, proving that this feeling is in fact a sensation shared by a significant percentage of the world's population. Initially, many sought a purely human explanation for this urge, that those who felt it were simply suicidal or depressed, or even that humans as a species just occasionally have an inherent desire to sabotage themselves. However, given that there's no scientific evidence to back up these hypotheses, the search for a real explanation continued. One of the first to put such a theory into actual words was the 20th century French philosopher and a key figure of the existentialism movement, Jean-Paul Sartre. In his book, Being and Nothingness, Sartre describes this sudden urge to jump as a moment of existentialist truth about the human freedom to choose to live or die. He referred to this concept as the vertigo of possibility, or when humans contemplate dangerous or even life-threatening experiments in the freedom of their own mind simply because they can. But more recently, a Cornell University cognitive neuroscientist, Adam Anderson, hypothesized that the call of the void stems from the human tendency to gamble with extreme risk. He states that people are less risk-averse when the situation is bad. They roll the dice to avoid the bad thing, meaning that in the case of Jack Sparrow, rolling the dice would be equivalent to He continues by saying, "Being somewhat anxious of heights myself, I feel the pull of the ground as if it is a safe space." Now, to the average person, this doesn't seem to make much sense, since in this scenario, getting pulled to the ground means death, but to the subconscious inner workings of our own brains, a greater value is placed on avoiding a loss in the present than achieving a potential gain in the future. He explains, fear of heights and fear of death may not be as connected in our brains as we may think. We solve the fear of heights problem by jumping, and are then confronted with the fear of death problem. However, as fascinating as Anderson's theory may be, it still isn't the most widely accepted explanation for why some of us feel the call of the void. That designation belongs to a 2012 study done by a clinical psychology professor at the University of Notre Dame, Jennifer Hames. Dubbing the feeling as the high place phenomenon, she and her colleagues sampled 431 undergraduate students, asking them if they'd ever experienced such a feeling while also assessing their behaviors, mood, levels of ideation, and symptoms of anxiety and depression. They found that approximately 1/3 of the study's participants reported feeling the call of the void at least once in their lives, a little over half of which had never experienced any suicidal tendencies or ideation. However, they did also discover that people with increased anxiety were more likely to feel the urge to jump, but also that higher anxiety levels typically correlate with higher levels of ideation. So, what does all that mean exactly? Well, the study goes on to explain that when someone walks across a high bridge, a message like, "back up, you might fall," is rapidly fired within their brain, potentially causing themselves to back away or grasp the railing. But after becoming aware that they aren't in any real danger of actually falling, since there's a railing there and the bridge is structurally sound, some individuals may rationalize this feeling as an indicator that they actually wanted to jump, and thus must also have a death wish. However, since the vast majority of people would prefer to be alive versus the alternative, the study concluded that this isn't actually the case. But then, why do some of our brains instinctively go there? if someone doesn't really want to die or hurt themselves, why would they imagine jumping? This is where the aforementioned correlation with higher levels of anxiety sensitivity come into play. Since the authors of this study discovered that those with increased anxiety levels are more likely to experience this high place phenomenon, they suggest that these same people may just be more likely to interpret a signal that they don't understand as something inherently dangerous. Therefore, Hames and her colleagues came to the conclusion that the call of the void is commonly experienced among suicide ideators and non-ideators alike, and thus individuals who report experiencing the phenomenon are not necessarily suicidal, but rather the experience of feeling the urge to jump may just reflect their sensitivity to internal cues and actually affirm their will to live. Or, to put it more simply, you feel the urge to jump because your unconscious mind is recognizing the potential danger of the situation you're in and telling your conscious mind to be extra cautious because you actually want to live, not the other way around. So when it comes down to it, regardless of whether you've felt the call of the void or not, it's not something you really need to be concerned about. There's no need to worry if you've ever thought about what would happen if you took a step forward off the ledge of a high cliff or swerved into an oncoming semi-truck on the highway, because a lot of people have had those same thoughts and urges, and there's no evidence to suggest that they play any real part in your mental health. By pondering these possibilities and the potential outcomes of them, you're not acting crazy or suicidal, but rather just reassuring yourself that you'd never actually do these things. You're acting on your inherent desire to keep living. However, if you do find yourself having suicidal thoughts and are considering acting upon them, it's still best to talk to a professional who can help, especially if they persist over time. Symptoms can get worse, so it's usually a good idea to seek help as soon as possible. So if that's the case for any of you watching, I encourage you to call the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration at the number on screen and get the assistance you need. It's a 24/7 hotline that can connect you with mental health resources and trained specialists in your area, even if you don't have any personal health insurance. But with that all being said, I still want to know what all of you think too. So let me know in the comments below if you've ever felt the call of the void. What were the circumstances that led to you feeling it? And what do you think of the potential explanations that I touched on in this video? And as always, please consider leaving a like, sharing with your friends, and subscribing to the channel if you like this type of content and want to see more. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook for more frequent updates, or to request a topic you'd like us to cover in a future video. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of Times New American, and have a fantastic rest of your day.